We start with a Fox News alert. The president is set to touch down in Pittsburgh moments from now, where Mr. Trump will tour an equipment plant and promote tax reform. And his visit certainly welcomed by a Republican candidate in a special House election nearby. Hello, everyone. I'm Dana Perino, and this is the Daily Briefing. The president's trip comes as the House prepares to vote on a short-term spending bill to avert a government shutdown Friday night. The White House saying the president now supports that bill, which also provides a 6-year funding extension for the Children's Health Insurance Program. Chief White House correspondent John Roberts has more. John.
You know, the president always supported that, Dana. It just seemed that he had a momentary bit of shall we say, uncertainness about the whole thing. But the White House does continue to drive a continuing resolution to keep the government open. They hope that this will be until February the 16th. Legislative Affairs Director Mark Short out on the White House driveway just a short time ago saying that he is confident that he can get the vote in the House. The Senate, though, is another question. They need 10 Democrats to pass the bill in the Senate because Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina looks like he's going to vote against it. And a Democrat activist group is keeping track of Democrats who are voting against this bill. They're taking names, and Short puts the odds of it passing in the Senate at 50-50. What the White House is throwing its support behind, and here's where the confusion happened, 6 years of funding for the state children's health insurance program, delays in Obamacare taxes on health insurers, medical devices, and Cadillac plans, and keep the government open through February the 16th. The president didn't quite seem to be on message this morning when he tweeted, quote, CHIP should be part of a long-term solution, not a 30-day or short-term extension. That said, the White House press office scrambling to come up with a clarification. Raj Shah, the principal deputy press secretary, in a statement saying, quote, the president supports the continuing resolution introduced in the House. Congress needs to do its job and provide full funding of our troops and military with a 2-year budget caps deal. However, as that deal is negotiated, the president wants to ensure our military and national security are funded. He will not let it be held hostage by Democrats. But that whole statement, Dana, kind of begs the question that if they can't even get an agreement on a measure to fund the government for less than a month, how are they ever going to come to an agreement on something that will fund the government for 2 years?
Well, this morning when the president first tweeted that, I was asked if I want to put it in the show, and I said, no, by 2 o'clock they'll fix it, and we'll be on our way. The Republicans will be back on board. The president heading to Pennsylvania today?
He is, yeah. He is going out there ostensibly for what is a tax reform event, trying to sell tax reform across the country. But underlying that whole thing, it is a political event for Rick Saccone, who is the Republican candidate in the special election on March the 13th in the 18th Congressional District, which is just sort of on the western side and south of Pittsburgh. For a Republican candidate to win should be a no-brainer. That the seat was held by Congressman Murphy from the year 2003 until he left the House late last year. President Trump won that district by 20 points. Mitt Romney won it by 17 points. The only poll that I've seen, which was a Gravis poll, shows Saccone up 12 points over his competitor, but it's said to be much closer than that. So the president tweeting this morning, quote, we'll be going to Pennsylvania today in order to give my total support to Rick Saccone, running for Congress in a special election March 13. Rick is a great guy. We need more Republicans to continue our already successful agenda. Because of recent losses in Alabama and the 10th Congressional District just a couple of days ago in Wisconsin, it was a district that was leaning Republican, but the Democrat blew the Republican away by 11 points. You know, if they lose this one, Dana, I don't want to be a Republican candidate in November. No question about that.
All right, John Roberts, thank you. There's a bipartisan meeting underway right now to hammer out a fix for the Dreamers. Key leaders from the House and Senate are talking as Democrats threaten a government shutdown without a DACA deal. The House expecting to vote this evening on a short-term spending bill. Peter Ducey is live on Capitol Hill. So who is in this meeting, Peter?
Dana, they're in the House Majority Leader's office about 250 feet behind where we are standing right now. So the House Majority Leader, Kevin McCarthy, is at the table. He's got the Senate Majority Whip, John Cornyn, there as well. The Democrats on their side of the table, the House Minority Whip, Steny Hoyer, and the Senate Minority Whip, Dick Durbin. Now, Republicans have basically been daring Democrats to vote against this month-long spending bill because they put 6 years' worth of money to pay for the children's health insurance program in it, and their argument is a vote against this bill is a vote against CHIP. But the House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi is still telling her people to vote no.
This is like giving you a bowl of doggy do, put a cherry on top, and call it a chocolate sundae. This is nothing.
So the Democrats think the CR stinks, and they are all expected to vote no because their demand for a DACA fix was not met.
So if
Dana.
this bill does pass the House, in spite of how she feels about it, how hard is it going to be to pass in the Senate?
Dana, it sounds like the Senate thinks they need 5 more days to round up enough votes because now Republican Senator Jerry Moran is pitching a 5-day-long continuing resolution to fund the government, and it is gaining a little bit of traction so far.
Senator Moran's proposal, I think Mike Lee liked it too, was that let's do a short-term CR, 4 or 5 days, with the understanding that gives us time to have a breakthrough on immigration, on defense spending, on chips, on disaster, and end this madness.
Many lawmakers have been complaining that a 1-month-long funding bill was too short because it did not do enough to help the Pentagon stay as ready as they possibly could be, or as ready as they could be with a longer-term deal. So it's not clear how much traction a 1 week long or less than a week long bill would get, but that is what they're talking about now over on the Senate side. The House is going to vote first today, though, and if all Democrats stick to their guns and vote no, then Paul Ryan, the Speaker of the House, can only afford to have 23 of his members vote no and have the CR still advance out of the House.
Well, Peter, I hope you brought your sleeping bag and your toothbrush because you might be there overnight.
I hope not.
All right. Thank you so much. Joining me for more on this is Mike Allen, the co-founder of Axios. It just happens to be the 1-year anniversary of Axios, and I think I can say I have read every single day. Thanks for being here today, Mike.
God bless. Well, Dana, thank you so much. And 1 year of smart brevity in Axios, we thought by now we'd be 50 people. We're 95 people and growing.
That's great. So you do something in the morning and in the afternoons. Where in the olden days, reporters used to just file once a day and that was it. How much would something like today's scramble in the morning change what you were going to do in the afternoon?
Well, Dana, that's a great question. And today, and your Fox viewers have seen this play out in real time all day. Multiple moving stories, just a morning paper wouldn't in any way capture the drama of what's going on. So you just had your great coverage of what the latest Axios intelligence indicates is a coming shutdown. House Republicans seem confident that they're going to get those votes that Peter Doocy says that they need. In the Senate, it looks like Democrats think it's cost-free enough to allow the shutdown that it looks like it may happen there. And then separately, you have this fascinating story that was touched off on Fox News last night with the White House Chief of Staff, General John Kelly, giving comments to Bret Baier that were very different than the president's about immigration. Of course, the president slapping back on Twitter today. Tough day for the chief in the West Wing. So you have both those going on. Dana, you've been there. You know that if you waited even for the evening news, you'd be missing it.
So we're taking a live look at President Trump arriving there on Air Force One in Pittsburgh. And tell me a little bit more about that meeting, because I actually think that perhaps it was inartful, but in my mind, what General Kelly said was very similar to things that President Trump has been indicating in the past 6 weeks as he's talked about the wall and understanding that some of it is going to have to include technology where you can't actually have a physical barrier. What was so wrong with what General Kelly said?
Well, Dana, that's very astute. You're right about your reading between the lines. For some time, the White House has been making it clear that when they talk about a wall, they're not talking about something that goes through water or something that goes through totally uninhabited, inaccessible areas. where the testiness in the West Wing, the awkwardness in the West Wing was touched off, was the way that General Kelly phrased it and the way the New York Times wrote it up. We know that the president, in addition to watching Fox News, reads the front page of the New York Times where that story was, which made it sound like General Kelly was not only saying the president has moved, and Dana, you know the presidents don't like to say they changed their minds, even when they have. And second, General Kelly seemed to be taking credit, along with experts, for enlightening this president. You know President Trump, if there's anything he doesn't like, it's being told that he's being enlightened by experts. So it was the framing of it more than the substance that no doubt got him stewing, got caught in his craw, and resulted in that tweet this morning, which looked like a brushback pitch to his chief of staff, regardless of whether the chief was even like trying to do a little work for him on the side.
Right, because I took it as the chief was trying to help advance the ball. It was a strategic move. Remember the president in that Tuesday meeting that everyone talks about that was so wonderful, he said, I'll take the heat, and you knew you're going to get heat because even if you get funding for the military and funding for CHIP, this all comes down to something that has happened in 2007 and 2015. It's that the Congress cannot come to an agreement on what to do on a comprehensive bill for immigration, and that is why we are back in this position again. It's not just the CHIP money or the military funding. It is actually about immigration. Can they actually get it done this year?
Well, the president, in the end, when he says the wall is a wall today, what, Dana, I know that you agree with this, what they need is something they can call a wall, something that is plausibly a wall, something that in 2020 he can say, I delivered. And that's the real end game here.
Right. All right, Mike Allen, we're sitting there watching the president just arriving in Pittsburgh. Thank you for taking us down the tarmac. We appreciate it. Mike Allen, thank you. Air Force One, so as I just said, is arriving in Pittsburgh, where President Trump will deliver remarks on tax cuts and the economy. Our next guest was on the floor of the U.S. Senate yesterday, sharing how the president's tax overhaul is helping Pennsylvania. Senator Pat Toomey, straight ahead.
So those were the two goals: direct tax relief for ordinary Americans and making the business tax code competitive. Mr. President, I am thrilled to be able to say that I believe we achieved both goals.
Just moments ago, walking down Air Force One steps now. He's in Pittsburgh on a trip meant to highlight the impact of tax cuts on the economy. Pat Toomey is the Republican senator for Pennsylvania. Senator, have you already seen results from tax reform in Pennsylvania?
Yeah, we sure have, Dana. You know, I fully expected, and I said at the time, that if we lower the cost of investing in business by lowering taxes on capital expenditures, that business would invest more and we would see over time higher compensation for workers. The only thing I was wrong about was I didn't realize it would happen immediately. But well over 2 million workers, including many, many tens of thousands of Pennsylvanians, have already gotten a pay raise, a bonus, increasing contribution to their pension plans, because the business sees the greater free cash flow that they have, and they need to invest in their workforce to retain and to attract good workers. So it's already happening. I know the Obama administration sort of regrets, after passing Obamacare, that they didn't get out on the road and continue to sell it, and it's one of the reasons, I think just one of the reasons it remained so unpopular while he was president. Do the Republicans understand the need to get out there and talk about that, and is that why President Trump is there today? If you look at these two Marist polls, or it's a Marist poll, but two aspects of it, still only 36% of people polled here favor the bill, and only 39% think that tax reform will help them financially. Is there a way for you to help sell this so that people will understand and maybe change their mind about the bill? Yeah, well, first of all, you know, the problem with Obamacare was it was bad policy. So
right, that's why I said it was only one aspect.
Right, you're right. But you're right. Some of my Democratic colleagues and some in the media have done a good job of completely mischaracterizing the tax reform. In fact, there's a lot of Americans think that they're going to get a tax increase when, in fact, they're getting a tax cut. So one thing that's going to help us a lot is withholdings are going to change by the end of February. People are going to see the paycheck that they bring home has gone up. And there's nothing more powerful than what you see with your own eyes. But I think your fundamental point is right. We should continue to go out, make the case. I'm thrilled that the president is in Pennsylvania. I wish I could be with him, but I'm stuck down here in Washington, as you know. But we should be making the case and reminding people of the benefits that are occurring.
At the beginning of the show, John Roberts from the White House was reporting about the president's trip. And the president's tweet this morning in support of Mr. Sassone, or Saccone, I think I'm saying that right now. Yeah. He's running in the special House election to replace Tim Murphy. The Gravis poll has him up 12 points, but apparently there are Republicans who are nervous about that race. Do they have a right to be nervous?
So I'm very confident that Rick is going to win that race. He's a good candidate. He's been elected before. He's doing a good job. But look, we shouldn't take anything for granted. The fact is, in special elections for House seats across the country, Democratic candidates have overperformed what you might typically expect for those districts. So we don't want to get caught asleep at the switch, and we're not. Rick Saccone is a good candidate. He's working hard. There are additional resources being brought in to help him, and I'm confident he's going to win this race.
All right, and then last question to you. What's happening? Are we going to shut it down or not shut down the government? And will you vote for the CR if it's presented, if it's a short-term one?
So I believe the House is likely to pass a short-term continuing funding measure. I will support it if it gets over here. And the question is, in the Senate, we need 60 votes. Will the Democrats join us in keeping the government open, in getting 6 years reauthorization of the children's health insurance?
Yeah.
Or will they shut it down over the fact that we have not yet resolved immigration?
How will the Republicans put the pressure all back on the Democrats so that they're the ones having to grapple with it?
Well, if a Republican-controlled House passes theirs, passes it in their body, and then the vast majority of Republicans support it here, but the Democrats don't give us the votes to get to 60, then it's pretty clear it's the Democrats that took it down.
Interesting. All right. Pennsylvania Senator Pat Toomey, thank you.
Thanks for having me, Dana.
An accused serial killer now behind bars. Ahead, how police tracked him down. Plus, what do recent special elections tell us about the midterms elections and the possibility of Democrats taking control of the House in 2018? We will speak with Republican Congressman Steve Stivers of Ohio. That's coming up next. So you're not necessarily in an enviable position, but have you put yourself in a place where you think you'll be able to hold on?
Dana, we have put ourselves in a great place. We set a fundraising record in 2017. We also went 5-0, winning every competitive special election. Every special election where we had a Republican on the general election ballot, we won in 2017, including Georgia's 6th district, where we were outspent by $20 million, and we still won.
Let me ask you about the tax reform bill. The president is in Pittsburgh. He's going to be touting that today and the benefits of it. And yet, as I was just saying a moment ago to Senator Toomey, that the polling for approval of the tax reform bill still lags behind. It's around 36% approval. Do you think for Republicans running in blue states where they're going to possibly see their taxes go up in New England and in California, you've got about 12 Republicans in those areas, are they vulnerable to being flipped by Democrats next year?
I don't think so, and I think we're working many of those Republicans in very high tax states are working with the Internal Revenue Service to get a clear opinion letter about people that chose to prepay their real estate taxes, and they're looking out for their constituents. Some of them voted against the tax bill because they didn't think it was a good deal, but I will tell you, the tax bill is a great bill for America. 2 million people have gotten bonus checks as a result of it. Pretty soon in February, the withholding tables will be changed, and every American can look at their check and see if tax reform is good for them or bad for them.
So for those members,
tax reform also has our economy moving. Apple announced a $300 billion investment yesterday. Tax reform is going to be great for the American people. We need to let people know that, but I feel good about what it's going to mean.
So if they didn't vote for the tax reform bill, do you think they should run on it?
I think people have to support their districts. I tell everybody there's no one-size-fits-all answer. You have to do what's right for your district. And there were people that chose to vote with their district, and that's okay. But the tax bill is going to be great for America.
I absolutely get that. What about recruiting? How's that going for you in terms of the types of people you've been able to recruit to run? I know that the person that you wanted to run in Illinois 17, Mr. Klein, has decided not to run. Are you running out of time to find some good people for those seats?
Well, I think we need to keep working to get folks in seats, but I can tell you, Leah Marquez Peterson in Arizona, in Martha McSally's seat, is an incredible recruit. She headed the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce in Tucson. We've got Young Kim, who is a Korean American, in Ed Royce's seat in Orange County, California. Ed announced he was retiring. Within 24 hours, Young Kim was in this seat. It's a 25% Asian American seat, and she's going to be a great candidate. She's already raising money. Ed has endorsed her. She's going to be very competitive. I think she's going to win that seat. And I would be remiss if I didn't talk about Pete Stauber up in the Iron Range in Minnesota. He is an incredible recruit. He's a deputy sheriff, professional hockey player. He is Minnesota, and he's going to be a great member.
He was like picture perfect. You're like, I want that guy. How's it been recruiting women in the Republican Party to try to run this year?
Well, just this week, as I said, Young Kim got in. We had Diane Harkey get in the Darrell Issa seat, and Leah Marquez Peterson got in the Martha McSally seat. We have a record number of women running. Another seat on offense that we're going to take back. Tim Walz is retiring in Minnesota's 1st District, and we've got a great female recruit there. And, she's going to be very competitive, and I think she can win that seat back.
Do you think that the Democrats are overconfident that they can take back the House this year?
I think that they are a little overconfident. Democrats are excited, Dana. We know that.
Yeah.
But we have proven in races like Georgia 6, where we were outspent by over $10 million, that we can still get our voters to the polls. And that's what we have to do. That's our job, is to get our voters to the polls. We will run on our record. Tax reform is going to make our economy strong. It's going to be a big deal for every American. And everybody's going to be able to look at their paycheck by the end of next month and say, is tax reform good for me? And most Americans are going to get a big thumbs up.
My last question for you, the president's up in Pennsylvania. It's certainly not going to hurt the efforts of Rick Saccone up there, who's running for the election to replace Tim Murphy. But as I understand it, Republicans are a little nervous about that seat. Do you think he will ultimately win it next month?
I am confident Rick Saccone will win that seat. And the contrast is really clear, Dana. Rick Saccone supports tax reform. Connor Lamb has decided to side with Nancy Pelosi over his local constituents. PNC Bank is paying $1,000 bonuses to their executives, to all their employees. And Connor Lamb is coming out against a bill that's getting thousands of his constituents
Interesting timing, for
pay
sure.
raises, and that's a problem.
All right. Thank you so much,
Thanks,
Ohio
Dana.
Congressman Steve Stivers. I hope to have you back. So a big change at Health and Human Services, new protections for doctors, nurses, and medical professionals when it comes to their religion. Plus, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson weighing in on the Mideast and its hot spots. What he
with Nutrisystem.
Go to Nutrisystem.com and get bar shakes and turbo boosters free.
Secretary of State Rex Tillerson speaking out on the situation in Syria. In a Stanford University address, Tillerson laid out the case for why regime change is necessary.
The nature of the Assad regime, like that of its sponsor, Iran, is malignant. It has promoted state terror. It has empowered groups that kill American soldiers, such as al-Qaeda. It has backed Hezbollah and Hamas, and it has violently suppressed political opposition.
Joining me now is Adam Airley, former U.S. ambassador to Bahrain and a former deputy State Department spokesman. It is good to see you. You know the region very well. What did you think about what Secretary Tillerson said?
Underwhelming, frankly. Look, nobody can disagree with Secretary Tillerson that Assad is bad and that the world would be better off with him out of power. What wasn't clear to me was, what is the United States prepared to do to achieve that objective? And this really is the problem with U.S. policy under Obama and under Trump, is that we do not match the resources required to achieve the objectives. If our objectives are to get rid of Assad and have a unified Syria that all Syrians can live in peacefully, then it's going to require a lot more than what Trump or Tillerson have suggested.
How much more?
Well, look, they said we're going to keep 2,000 troops there. right, in eastern Syria to basically keep al-Qaeda from coming back, to support the Geneva process, to preserve safe areas,
and to push back on Iran.
2,000 troops? Is that what's going to do? And oh, by the way, that's going to get rid of Assad? That's going to create free and transparent elections? You need a lot more, especially when you keep in mind that Iran has maybe 40, 50,000 troops, is spending over $1 billion a year in Syria. And look, Trump and Tillerson have said Iran is the big threat. Well, 2,000 U.S. troops in Syria versus the Iranian Empire, not a fair match.
And you haven't mentioned Russia yet. How does that play into it?
Well, again, Russia is a very interesting case. I mean, first of all, Russia would like nothing more than to see a strategic setback for the United States in Syria and in the Middle East, and they are doing everything possible to make that happen. What struck me about Tillerson's speech yesterday was he was saying that, you know, Russia, we expect Russia to support the Geneva process and to help bring about a political settlement in Syria that will see Assad leave power. Why in the world does Tillerson or the United States think Russia's going to do that? Assad's their guy.
Right.
What interest or why should Russia get rid of him and work with the United States to do so?
And then what about Turkey then and the issue of the Kurds?
Well, Turkey, I mean, Erdogan, the president of Turkey, has said he will kill American soldiers if they get in the way of Turkish troops going after Kurdish guerrillas, armed Kurdish militias in Syria that the United States supports. So again, you know, all these people that the United States says are going to help them in Syria, Russia, Turkey, the Free Syrians, whatever that is, it doesn't add up. They're not going to do it. So really, the only way the United States can accomplish its objectives in Syria, meaning prevent al-Qaeda from coming back, get rid of Assad, have political unification, is if we're willing to devote the blood and treasure and prestige of the United States to accomplish that objective. There is nothing worse for the United States than to make empty threats or empty promises. So if the United States says it's going to do this in Syria, back up your words with deeds. Don't just talk the talk, walk the walk. We're not doing it, and the signal that sends to everybody is we're a paper tiger.
Is that what you hear from people in the region?
Well, you know, they say, where's the beef here? I mean, he's saying that, but what's he going to do about it?
But I guess the good news would be for Tillerson is that Mattis seems to agree with him.
Well, yeah, but okay. Mattis and Tillerson are on the same page, but neither one, first of all, there's one boss, right?
Yeah.
It's Trump.
Yep.
The president's going to tell the Secretary of State and the Secretary of Defense what to do. Number two, I don't think either Trump or Mattis believes that anything the United States does is going to get rid of Bashar al-Assad. They say it, they have to, but they don't believe it. Third of all, if they were really pressed to say, you know, what do we need to do to get rid of Bashar, they would tell you it's going to take a lot more than 2,000 troops in eastern Syria.
All right. Adam Airley, I'm so glad you were here today.
Thank you.
You so much. The Health and Human Services Department announcing a new division, one that will make it easier for doctors, nurses, and other medical professionals to opt out of providing services that violate their religious beliefs. Doug McKelway is live in Washington. Doug, this is part of a broad array of counteractions that President Trump is using to push back against Obama-era regulations that impacted religious freedom.
Yeah, sure is, Dana. The Trump administration, as you well know, opposed the contraceptive mandate of Obamacare that adversely impacted the Little Sisters of the Poor. It supported the baker in the Masterpiece Cake Shop case. And today, it has created this new division at HHS called the Conscience and Religious Freedom Division within its Office of Civil Rights. Its intention is to make it easier for doctors, nurses, and other health care providers to opt out of providing services that violate their moral or religious beliefs, as President Trump said.
He said we are a nation of tolerance and that we will not allow people of faith to be bullied or targeted anymore.
The division will also be responsible for ensuring that hospitals, clinics, and other health centers are accommodating religious beliefs. This all follows the president's signing of an executive order last year that instructed agencies to expand religious liberty under federal law. And it gives strength and legal recourse to people like Sarah Helwig, a midwife, a pro-life midwife who says she was rejected from a job at a healthcare center.
I was then told that because of these convictions, I would not be allowed to interview and proceed with the hiring process.
The new division at HHS is also intended to strengthen the First Amendment protections, which HHS notes, quote, are just empty words on paper if they are not enforced. But one citizen's civil right is another's injustice. One abortion rights group said under this new office, HHS is a place, quote, where backwards ideology rules and science, ethics, and concern for the well-being of all Americans are non-existent. The ACLU said Trump's executive order would, quote, permit discrimination and called it a broadside to our country's long-standing commitment to the separation of church and state. So, Dana, we've got huge differences of opinion on this matter.
So might there be some unintended consequences here, though?
Yeah, and keep in mind in that regard just what the first phrase of the First Amendment says. It says, quote, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. We're going to see how this all plays out. There will no doubt be many court challenges, and if the administration sticks to a firm interpretation of the First Amendment, you can see all kinds of religious accommodations for beliefs in the health industry, from worship centers to time off for various religious holidays and observances to food accommodations. And this would have been easier in a day of Christianity and Judaism. Nowadays, we've got a tremendous diversity of religions out there, and so we'll see how this all plays out.
All right, Doug, thank you.
My pleasure.
President Trump is in Pennsylvania. We are awaiting his comments on taxes and the economy. And many believe there is another reason for Mr. Trump's visit. Plus, live to Capitol Hill, where Congress may be eyeing welfare reform after the Trump administration's decision to allow states.
Takes the stage. That's coming up. Top of the hour on Shepard Smith Reporting.
President Trump taking a tour of H&K Equipment Company near Pittsburgh, taking some questions from the pool. Let's listen in.
It's not working for them. The tax cuts and tax reform has not been working well for the Democrats. Now, yesterday you saw with Apple, $350 billion investment. Now they're also giving thousands of dollars to their employees. That's happening all over the country, and I'm really happy. People are really doing well. They're doing better than they have in years. And to be honest, the tax cuts, not only have they worked, they're working much bigger and much faster than we ever thought possible. We'll talk to you later.
Rick Saccone says he was Trump before Trump.
Rick Saccone said he was Trump before Trump. Rick is a great guy. I think he's going to do really well. He's a great guy. He loves this area, loves this country. He just met me at the plane. He's here someplace. But actually, this is about tax cuts today. This is about our economic reform. But Rick is a great guy and special. He's a special person.
He won this. You won this district by 20 points.
Right.
Can he do as well as you?
I hope so. I want him. I just said to him, I hope you're going to do as well. But we're here. We're going to be helping him. I'll be back for Rick, and we're going to fill up a stadium, and we're going to do something really special for Rick. I look forward to it.
Okay. Mr. President, a lot of steel workers.
Possible shutdown?
We'll see what happens. No, if there's a shutdown, again, I really believe the Democrats want a shutdown to get off the subject of the tax cuts because they've worked so well. Nobody thought, including the Democrats, they could work this well. They've been so good that I think the Democrats would like to see us shut down in order to get off that subject. That is not a good subject for them, the tax cuts, because of the way they've worked.
Mr. President, a lot of steelworkers hoping for help from your administration.
We're going to be helping them. We're going to be helping the steelworkers, just like we've helped a lot of the groups, including here. But I love the work you're doing. I love this business, right? Absolutely. And I understand this business, but you're probably a little bit surprised. But when I see that going into that, and that's a 1980 version, that's an amazing thing. And it's brand new, and it's got a brand new life. I mean, so that will be as good as if it were brand new.
It leaves here with a brand new factory warranty.
That's so fantastic. That's 1980, and it looks like it just came out of a factory brand new. Thank you all very much. No, Rick Saccone, good man. Great guy.
Thank you, Mr. Right this way, sir.
That was President Trump. He's touring H&K there in Pennsylvania. And, of course, he's taking some questions from the press. The cameraman, he's got to be quick. And the boom mic guy's got to get there so they can capture all those comments. The president making a little bit of news. He says he will be back to campaign for Rick Saccone. He said they're going to fill up a stadium, so I can only assume he'll be doing a rally there, no doubt talking about tax reform and all the other things that are happening. Joining me now is Arthur Brooks, president of American Enterprise Institute, AEI, and a really good friend. Let me talk to you about the economy is doing very well, like fully recovered, jobs coming back. There's all of this good news. And still there are people who are not working and struggling.
Yeah.
What do you think the American government can do about that?
Well, labor participation isn't as high as it should be. So unemployment is low, but a lot of people have dropped out of the workforce over the past 10 years. And so what you see is there's still too many people who are not unemployed, but they're not working. So that's what we have to be paying attention to. People are really at the margins who have lost skills. They're usually middle-aged. They're in small-town America, and we have to have better policies that can give incentives for companies to come into these areas as well.
Well, then the administration and the Republicans are thinking about pushing forward these new work rules for people that are receiving Medicaid benefits. Should they do that? And how should they talk about it?
It's really important policy. It's a great idea, and resistance to it is a stupid thing for the Democrats and for Republicans to do. Why? Because we have a lot of experience on work requirements. It's one of the most important things that we can do for welfare. We don't need to dismantle the welfare state. We should declare peace on welfare, but with work. Why? Because work dignifies. You know, a lot of people who have jobs, a lot of wealthy people, politicians, people in New York and Washington, they'll say, yeah, well, my job is awesome. But, a dead-end job, why should we make people do that? Work is not a punishment. Work is a blessing, and we have to keep that in mind for them, too.
All right. Arthur Brooks, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Dana.
And for sitting with us as we got the news from the president. So President Trump is wrapping up that factory visit right now in Pennsylvania. In just minutes, he's expected to make remarks on taxes and the economy. Of course, we'll bring that to you live.